everybody. I am coming to you today to just give you some tips about what you should do once you decide to create a new project. I am deciding to start a new quilt for another son of mine, and so I just want to show you how to figure out what you need for that quilt and just give you some basics about how to get started. Okay, I'm going to start first with the picture. I usually start with a diagram of the quilt, and so I'm going to show it. I hope you can see it. It is in pencil. Okay, and I've already colored in where my where his jerseys are going to be. The white is where it's a white jersey. He actually has a lot of white jerseys. And then each one of these little in between, that's going to show the sashing, and that's the extra fabric that I have to get. So what I'm going to do today is show you how to figure out how much fabric you need to purchase for your quilt. For a jersey quilt like this, it's not a lot of fabric that you need to buy. You just need to buy that little sashing. So that's all we're going to talk about today. Typically, when you have a pattern, I have some quilt patterns here. These are just some patterns that I found online, and they typically will tell you exactly how much fabric you need. But since I am designing my own quilt, and hopefully you'll be designing your own projects, this is just a way to help you figure out what you'll need to figure out how much fabric you need. Okay, so the first thing you need to decide when you're working with a quilt like this one is how big it needs to be. Okay, so the basic measurements for a quilt, for a twin size quilt, the basic measurement is 68 inches wide and 86 inches long. A full is 81 inches by 86 inches. A queen, 86 by 100, and a king, 102 by 88. Okay, so what I had already done is on mine, I decided that my jersey squares would each be 12 inches square. So what I had to come back and do is figure out how wide the sashing strips needed to be. Of course, they need to be 12 inches long to match the square, but figuring out how wide they needed to be in order for me to get my desired measurement, which was for a twin. So I have 12-inch jersey squares, and so for my measurements to match up to be a twin, I am going to use 4-inch wide rectangles all over. Okay, so let's talk about how you figure out what you need for these rectangles. All right, one of the basic things that you need to know first is the width of the fabric that you're going to be using. So this is the fabric that I'm going to be using as his sashing, and I'm actually going to be using it for the horizontal rectangles and the vertical. So I'll be able to show some different cutting techniques as far as how to get those horizontal rectangles to look exactly right. Okay, so this is his favorite team fabric. Okay, so the main thing that you need to know about this fabric is that it is 44 inches from selvage to selvage, and that determines the width of the fabric. So I'm going to open it out and show you what the selvage edges look like. Okay, so this, you can see it here at the top, this white part, that shows one of the selvage edges, and then the other part is down here at the bottom, and it's not white, but you can see that it's a finished edge of the quilt. Alright, and that's different from the edge that they cut, because at the fabric store they're cutting the length, and so it looks really jagged. Okay, so you need to know that's the length of the fabric, or the width, I'm sorry, of the fabric that you're going to work with, because that's going to help you figure out how big you want to make your rectangles. Okay, so, and how much fabric you need to make those rectangles. So what I've done is a basic way to figure it out. Of course, when you're starting, you just start with your basic measurement. I want it to be 12 inches long and 4 inches wide for each rectangle. With the seam allowances, that's going to be 12.5 inches by 4.5 inches. Okay, so the first thing that I did is figure out how many cuts of that fabric I can get out of the 45 inches. So for 12.5 inches, I'm going to use my tablet as my calculator. So if I'm cutting 4.5 inch strips that are 12 inches wide, or 12.5 inches wide, I'm going to divide that 44 by the number of inches in the strip, okay? So let's see, go to the calculator. All right, and I'll hold it up. So I'm going to do 44 inches divided by 12.5, because that is the width, well, the length of the strips. Okay, so that's 3.52. So I can get 3 12.5 inch rectangles from that width of fabric. So from 44 inches, I can get 3 12.5 inch little blocks. So what I need to do is figure out how many rows of the blocks I need. Okay, so since, if you look at my diagram here, all right, to find out how many horizontal ones I need, okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 going across, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 going down. So I need a total of 24 horizontal strips. Okay, and so since there are three in each 44 inches, I need 8 total widths, or 8 total sashes to get those blocks. And I can show you that more clearly once I start to cut the fabric. Okay, so what I need to do next is figure out how many yards of fabric that's going to be. So since I know that I need 8 sashes, I'm going to multiply that by the 4.5 inches that I started with, because I'm going to cut 4.5 inch strips. So 8 times 4.5 equals 36, and that's the total number of inches that I need. And in the fabric store, they need to know by the yard how many yards. So 36 inches equals 1 yard. So I basically need 1 yard of the fabric to make the horizontal sashes. Okay, and then you use that same process to figure out the vertical. And so total, I need 25 vertical. So I put that I need about 1.5 yards of each stripe, or each sashing fabric, because I like to have a little bit extra just in case something weird happens, like if I botch up one of the rows and it doesn't look right, or the measurements aren't quite right. So I always go a little bit over. So that's completely your prerogative. It's about how you, if you choose to go over your fabric or whatever. And I also like to get extra of the sashing fabric because I like to use that same fabric for the binding. Okay, so if you have any questions, I hope that was clear. If you have any questions, please comment below. Please thumbs up, rate, subscribe to my channel. I look forward to bringing you new videos on Mondays and Thursdays. So thank you and have a good one. See ya.